This is Prince Hanley coming to you with 100,000 watts of pure love. The voice of Israel and for Israel. Today I want to talk to you about the world leader who deceives Israel. Jerusalem is the key to getting the Jews to sign a treaty of peace with the Palestinians and the Arab nations in a covenant for 7 years, and that will most likely allow the Jews to build their temple on or near the Holy Mount. Last week, Senator Barack Obama said, "Those who threaten Israel threaten us," speaking about the United States. He said, "I will bring an unshakable commitment to Israel's security and guarantee Israel's military strength so that it can defend itself from any threat, from Gaza to Tehran." Notice, I want to make a preface here. I'm not saying that Barack Obama is the anti-Messiah or the false Messiah. What I am saying is that the New World Order, or a new name that it will select for their organization, will choose a leader who will deceive Israel with words and make it seemingly beneficial to Israel to sign a 7-year peace treaty. Obama declared repeatedly that as president he would never compromise on his commitment to Israel's security. He said, "Not while there are still voices that deny the Holocaust, not when there are terrorists who threaten Israel's existence and there are rockets raining down from Gaza." While Obama emphasized that Israel's identity must be preserved as a Jewish state with secure, recognized, and defensible borders, and that Jerusalem is its undivided capital, Obama also stated that the Palestinians need a state that is contiguous. Obama stated that Israel's security is sacrosanct. It is non-negotiable. The Palestinians need a state that is contiguous and cohesive and that allows them to prosper. But any agreement with the Palestinian people must preserve Israel's identity as a Jewish state, with secure, recognized, and defensible borders. Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided, he declared. Then, due to Arab backlash, Obama did an about-face concerning Jerusalem. A day later, Obama reversed, telling reporters, "Well, obviously it's going to be up to the parties to negotiate a range of these issues, and Jerusalem will be part of those negotiations. As a practical matter, it would be very difficult to execute a policy of the capital remaining undivided." And then Palestinian Authority negotiator Ahmad Khareh said during the weekend that if talks between Israel and the Palestinians fail, the Palestinian Authority will return to a concept of one state. He said, "I will tell them that we spent 30 years persuading Palestinians to accept a two-state solution, and if we do not succeed in achieving it, we will return to the idea of one state." Notice again, I'm not saying in my illustrations during this podcast that Barack Obama is the anti-Messiah. What I'm trying to do is emphasize the fact that there will be a leader who will step on the scene, appointed by the New World Order or some other name that it may choose in the future, and deceive Israel with cunning words to convince Israel that they need to sign a 7-year peace treaty. Now, I told you what Barack Obama said, and then I told you what PA negotiator Khareh said. Now I'm going to remind you all along what Prince Hanley has been saying. In past shows, in past podcasts, I've related to you that Jerusalem is a vital, key factor in negotiations. And I've also discussed with you that the second appearing of Mashiach, Messiah Yeshua, to planet Earth will be the most earth-shaking event ever to happen on this planet. The whole world will be tuned in to his power and glory. A few years previous to the return of Messiah, the world dictator, the anti-Messiah or false Messiah, the Antichrist, will arise from the 10-nation confederacy that will be formed from the European Union or the Confederacy of Arab Nations or a combination of both. This coming world dictator, the anti-Messiah, will be the one who implements the one world government for the New World Order. A few months previous to the second appearance of Messiah to earth, there will be millions of people killed in fighting and terrorism. Jerusalem will be under attack, with plunder happening from house to house, women being raped, and half the city of Jerusalem going into captivity. You can read that in the Tanakh in Zechariah chapter 14, verse 2. It will be a time of trouble worse than the Nazi Holocaust. You can read that in Jeremiah chapter 30, verses 5 through 6. The Jews will actually start experiencing extreme persecution about 42 months after the New World Order dictator takes over control and about 42 months before Messiah returns. In other words, in the middle of the 7-year treaty, the Jews will start experiencing the worst persecution they've ever had in the time of history, even worse than under Nazi Germany. The 10-nation confederacy that will be comprised of governments in both Europe and the Middle East, including Northeast Africa, will ultimately have the political clout to control the Mediterranean. The 10-region confederacy, and by the way, it may be 10 nations, it may be 10 regions, it may be 10 geopolitical confines, they'll be comprised of governments in both Europe and the Middle East, including Northeast Africa. They will ultimately have the political clout to control the Mediterranean. Some of these 10 region states may be from Western Asia and North Africa, as I said, but most of them will probably be from Europe. The final leader of this confederacy will overthrow 3 of the 10 regions by a political, military, and governmental takeover. Today, in addition to disease and famine issues, the leaders of the dominant nations are concerned with 3 primary factors. Number 1, attaining peace among nations and ethnic groups. Number 2, guaranteeing the flow of oil. And number 3, stopping terrorism and conflict in the Middle East, especially between Israel and the Palestinians. The chief bargaining factor will be the city of Jerusalem. What you should be watching for is leadership. A leader who will seemingly have the solution for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That's why I've used these previous examples from the news today. This leader, appointed by the New World Order, will bring temporary peace and will convince the Jews to sign a 7-year treaty. In exchange for agreeing to this treaty negotiation, Israel will be allowed to rebuild her temple on the Temple Mount or near there. Then, after 3.5 years, after 42 months, the New World Order leader, the false Messiah, will do just what Antiochus Epiphanes did, who desecrated the Jewish temple at the time of the Maccabean revolt. You can read that in Daniel chapter 9, verse 24 to 27, and Daniel chapter 11, verse 31. Study those chapters in the Tanakh. The prophecy in Daniel probably had a double fulfillment in both Antiochus Epiphanes and the anti-Messiah. Yeshua himself gave validation to Daniel's prophecy in Matthew, that's the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 15 of the Brit Hadashah, that's the New Covenant or New Testament. Yeshua said, Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which Daniel the prophet spoke of, standing in the holy place, then let those who are in Judea flee into the mountains, for there will be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world unto this time, nor shall ever be. You can read that again in Matthew chapter 24, verse 15 to 31. As I mentioned to you previously, Jerusalem will be under attack. This will happen probably after the one-world system starts falling apart. The reason being that the anti-Messiah, the New World Order dictator, needs to maintain some semblance of beneficence to the Jews in Israel for a while after his takeover. Remember, the key to getting the Jews to sign a treaty of peace with the Palestinians and the Arab nations is a covenant for 7 years, which will most likely allow the Jews to build their temple on or near the Holy Mount. In the middle of the 7 years, 42 months before Messiah returns to earth to establish his kingdom, the covenant is broken by the false Messiah, the world dictator, and the temple is desecrated like Daniel and Jesus foretold. Remember to watch for leadership, that New World Order leader who promises Israel everything, who entices them to make a covenant for 7 years, and in the middle of the 7 years breaks the treaty, goes into the temple, blasphemes God Almighty, claims that he himself is God, and starts a time of persecution greater than the Jews have ever known since the world began and ever will be. Now, what should you do besides watching for this new leadership? Make sure you know Messiah. If you don't, call on him today. Just pray and say, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, if Yeshua is really my Messiah, reveal him to me. Now, when Yahweh reveals to you that Yeshua is your Messiah, receive him. Pray and ask him what he wants you to do. This is the most exciting time that you and I could ever live. We were born for this time from our mother's womb. The blessings of God overtake you. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch haba b'shem Adonai.